The idea of an isekai-based story is one that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It's been done to death. See, this guy, he's a freaking nerd who no one likes, but one day he dies, or gets eviscerated, or explodes. Anyway, the methods don't matter, but bottom line, one day he or she, but usually he for some reason, gets transported to another world. And in this brand new world, the main character gains some kind of cheat-like ability which makes them super powerful and makes women or men fall at their feet, but usually women for some reason. We've seen this same plot so many times it's become a genre of its own, when in reality it has no real right to be. Outside of Japan, an isekai is such an oddly specific genre to make. It's as if we had a genre in the West for humans who form a strangely emotional connection with their horses or something. Anyways, with how saturated the isekai genre has become nowadays, there's now different subgenres of the isekai within the category of isekai. There's the normal isekai, the reverse isekai, the post-isekai, and the hentai. And I would like to take the time right now to talk about one of my favorite series ever from one of those subgenres from just a second ago. And the weird thing is, it isn't even a Japanese series. Yeah, I know, right? One of the best series that's part of this infamously Japanese genre isn't even from frickin' Japan. What do you know? So, Trinity Wonder is a webtoon manhwa thing by the same people who made The Breaker, so you know it's gotta be good. It's got 100 chapters of stunning eye candy and is probably one of the most visually gorgeous manhwa I've ever read. But before I spoil anything else, let's just get into it. So, Trinity Wonder is what I like to classify as a reverse isekai, which probably is not at all the correct term for it, but who cares? This type of story is comprised of a character or multiple characters coming from a fantasy world to our world of Earth, with the normal isekai being the opposite, with multiple people being transported from Earth to some far-off land of dragons and overly attractive women, sometimes with those two concepts being one and the same. But anyways, one of the many ways that Trinity Wonder distinguishes itself from other isekai who use the same exact premise is through the initial development of Earth. In a lot of other stories, Earth is just Earth. You know it, you hate it, global warming, natural disasters, f you Mr. Politician. It's Earth, nothing special. But in this story, that's not quite the case. This story is set far into the future in a sci-fi city called Asadal. This city is ruled by the corrupt and powerful and can be defined by its futuristic look and excess of cool gadgets and mechs. Just this one change of having the world be more interesting than it would be normally does so much to mix this story up. Instead of just waiting around while we watch the visitors from another world learn what Wonder Bread is, we are actively learning about this new world too. It gives us a reference point and an aspect of relatability to these people who have been transmigrated to such a vibrant and beautiful world. And while we can't quite understand everything about them yet, it does a lot to make them more sympathetic. Also, aside from that, the city is just really freaking cool. I have a huge spot for Neo Tokyo, bright lights, and neon signposts kind of worlds, and that's literally exactly what this feels like. Also, this futuristic setting does a lot to help with the power scaling of the story. Another staple problem of the isekai genre is the bonkers power systems. They are children, literal 5-year-olds who have the ability to speak a whole sentence in Dragonese or something and summon the embodiment of Satan. And yet somehow we're meant to believe that there are other people in the world that can even put up a fight against them? It's a complete farce. There's no tension because the main characters are just completely bonkers strong and they don't even try to pretend otherwise. But anyways, ranting aside, Trinity Wonder sidesteps this problem gracefully. Because of the hyper-developed technology in this new world, there's actually a tangible threat to these other worlders, and even though they have special powers, it's still possible for them to lose in a fight, simply due to the vast knowledge that humanity has accumulated in this postmodern era. What are they gonna do? Sure, you may be able to catch these hands, but can you catch this nuclear warhead? And there's another thing the story does to make sure the main characters don't feel too overpowered, but before I get to that, I should probably talk about those main characters for a bit. So, there's a reason this story is called Trinity Wonder, and I'm sure a lot of you guys may have guessed it already, but I'll catch the rest of you up. Trinity means a group of 3 people or things. Therefore, while other stories such as Singularity Surprise or Duality Amazement may have 1 or 2 main characters respectively, this story has 3 main characters. So first off is the native of this futuristic world, Sylvia, aka Best Girl, aka Damn That Seems Gratuitous, but you don't see me complaining. Sylvia is a hot-headed inventor who is basically the overbearing mom of the trio of main characters, mostly just because she's the only one who knows what's going on most of the time. While Sylvia has a record for being violent and stubborn, her icy demeanor slowly gets broken down by the other 2 main characters that intrude their way into her life. Throughout the story, she's often the calculating and capable one, being the CEO of a high-profile company and being seen as a celebrity for her genius. Next up, we have Emily, our first of the transmigratory duo that appear in the story. Emily is originally from a classic fantasy world where dragons and magic run abound. Emily herself is a mage with the ability to harness mana in the air to create spells of many different types and uses. She's quite a bit less over the top than the other 2 main characters, preferring to stay silent and dignified most of the time. However, she also has a prideful streak to her. Also, this is off script, but I really like how in the story there's this running joke where everybody in Asadal just thinks Emily is the cutest thing in the world for some reason, and because of that, all of her like enemies just don't want to hurt her, and it's a really cute gag. It's really fun. Finally, we have Wu Jin, who is a representative from the world of Murim, or martial arts. He is basically our main character for most of the story, as his conflict and development are the most central to the plot. Being a man from a world based entirely on strength, and considering he was one of the top dogs in his previous world, fighting as the leader of the justice-oriented side of the Murim, Wu Jin is very prideful and proactive, often believing in himself and his abilities over all else. However, he also has a deep-seated sense of virtue and honor, refusing to do anything that would bring him shame. The chemistry between these three characters is one of my favorite parts of the story. Initially, it's just fun to see both Wu Jin and Emily discover more and more about this new and crazy world that they've been brought to, and it's even more fun having to see Sylvia deal with their manic tendencies. However, soon a genuine bond forms between the three, with a lot of the story being centered around the group dynamic they have with each other. But with that out of the way, let me wrap up my point about the power scaling. Wu Jin and Emily were both insanely powerful figures in their previous world, however, not all of that power can be translated to the new world they find themselves in. Wu Jin, being a person of the Murim, utilizes ki in his surroundings to use his techniques, and Emily similarly uses mana from her surroundings to cast spells. Well, in the story, we soon learn that these two concepts are one and the same. In this new world of Asadal, mana or ki or whatever you want to call it is very sparse, and its concentration is a lot smaller than it was in either of the characters' previous worlds, which makes it a lot harder for them to utilize their powers to the fullest of their abilities. This debuff is very naturally integrated into the story, and while it doesn't completely nerf any of the characters, it still manages to bring their powers down to a reasonable enough level for the story to function properly. Alright, so far Trinity Wonder sidesteps almost every single cliché pitfall of the usual isekai story and puts a new spin on the identity of the genre by having two otherworlders come instead of one. So what else does Trinity Wonder have to its name? Oh, nothing much, just one of the most interesting and most dynamic character arcs I've ever seen in a Murim story, or an isekai story, so let's just take a second to talk about Pink Papa. By the way, slight spoilers for some of the later story arcs in the manhwa. Say hello to Pink Papa. He is the embodiment of evil and the incarnation of the Demon King into our physical plane of existence. Or at least, their physical plane of existence. Whatever. He is the main antagonist of the story, or at least the closest thing we have to it. In the city of Asadal, there's a threat to the peace of society, and this threat is the Black Tower. The Black Tower is a mafia group that resides in, well, a black tower on the outskirts of the city. This area is a hub for the lesser fortunate and is a force that stands against the city of Asadal. The Demon King, Lim Ho-tan, is the mortal enemy of our main character, Wu Jin. In their previous world, their battle is what caused the portal to open up, which whisks both of them away to the world of Asadal. Even though we don't know the true depth of the hatred between Wu Jin and Ho-tan, we do know that they are forces opposed to each other, having been enemies for ages, with Ho-tan almost killing Wu Jin on numerous occasions. However, in this new world, Ho-tan finds a new purpose. After he lands in Asadal, many years before Wu Jin does, he starts to help the refugees that have been cast out of the perfect city of Asadal, striving to assist the less fortunate who've been rejected from the well-lit city. Ho-tan finds a daughter, somebody he cares for over even his own life, and his dream of eventually making it back to the world of the Murim is eventually replaced by the dream to live quietly with his daughter. And so, because of his desire to protect his people and his daughter, Ho-tan constructs the Dark Tower, not as a den for criminals and outlaws, but as a place his daughter can truly call home. If there's one thing I can say about the people who made this story, it's that they know how to get you excited. They have a perfect understanding of how to build hype, how to get you riled up and ready for the story to take off, and they know how to leave you satisfied once the story eventually concludes. The entire story of the manhwa up until this point is essentially a build-up to the climax. The entire story arc focuses solely on the task of the main characters to raid the Dark Tower, and get back to their respective worlds. And even though the story in this reality occurs during a very small time frame, it's still a treat to watch happen, as the story and art get you hooked on every single moment. Thank you guys for watching, and thanks so much for 100 subscribers. I know in the grand scheme of things it's not really a milestone that it should be even worth mentioning, but it still means a lot to me regardless, so thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!